G'day, I'm George Christensen, former Australian Member of Parliament, and this is Nation First. Today we ask the question, are we heading towards a one world currency? And if so, what does that mean for national sovereignty and freedom? And what does it ultimately mean for you and your family? Let's dive in. Before we get going, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and click the little bell to get more alerts when we have news to share with you on the Great Reset. And make no mistake, a one world currency is absolutely part of the World Economic Forum's Great Reset program. The World Economic Forum have long been advocating for a global currency, producing a host of articles on the topic, such as, is it time for a true global currency? Do we need a global currency? Is it time to introduce a global currency? Right now, the US dollar and the euro have achieved near parity in value. That's been the case for several months now. It occurs at the same time as Europe shifts away from Russia for its energy needs and more towards the US energy market. Meanwhile, Great Britain's pound sterling has also been on a trend toward a sharp decline, currently trading against the dollar at 87 pence. However, given the political uncertainty within that country, they've been through how many prime ministers right now, that drop is likely to continue. The emerging parity of the US dollar, the euro, and the pound sterling, along with the increased economic integration between the United States and Europe, means an eventual push towards a common currency could be plausible. And if that were to happen, the realization of a world currency would then also be plausible. But there is another reason why a one world currency is possible. The US dollar is on decline as a global reserve currency. Last year, the International Monetary Fund felt the need to announce that the share of the US dollar reserves held by central banks around the world had fallen to 59%, its lowest level in quarter of a century. Decades ago, America linked their currency to oil production, hence the petrodollar. As the radical green agenda is pushed by Western nations, traditional energy sources and the petrodollar are both now at risk of collapse. Energy economics analyst Marin Katusa wrote about this back in 2014 in his book, The Colder War.
The only thing holding America right now at the top is the petrodollar. And let me make it very clear, if the petrodollar dies, so does America as a superpower.
Of course, the collapse of the petrodollar, and sadly, the United States of America as a superpower, will have been entirely manufactured. That's what climate change politics is all about. It's all about destroying capitalism. It's all about bringing in socialism. And look, I want to change the system too, but socialism is not the answer. It never has been. It's a return to the true free enterprise model of capitalism and away from the corrupt crony capitalist corporatism economic model we have today that's the answer. By the way, it's that crony corporatism model that Klaus Schwab and the Davos elite seek to enhance with their Great Reset agenda. And why wouldn't they? The richest of the rich and the most powerful corporations on planet Earth belong to the World Economic Forum. The CEO of BlackRock, the largest investment firm that, together with Vanguard, owns almost 80% of everything, sits on the board of the World Economic Forum. In the words of George Carlin,
it's a big club, and you ain't in it.
And it's the people in that big club, the richest of the rich, that have everything to lose if the US dollar as the reserve currency collapses and there's nothing left to take its place other than the Chinese yuan or the Russian ruble. So the establishment of a one world currency that becomes the new global reserve currency suits the financial interests of the globalist elites. Right now, the three currencies of the US dollar, the euro, and the pound sterling make up about 83% of all international transactions by value. If they were to combine into a single currency, their desirability by global corporations, with it backed by economies occupying some 40% of the world's GDP, would increase considerably. In addition, as we've seen during the current economic turmoil, people have been flocking to convert their money into safe currency. As the world economy is expecting to get even worse in the coming years, should the US, the UK and Europe adopt a common currency, we can expect a full flight towards this currency as people's local currencies become virtually worthless from inflation. First, we would see its adoption in people's savings. Then, as the economic situation continues to worsen, an informal adoption in day-to-day transactions. As its use would then become widespread, more countries outside Europe and North America would start adopting it officially, including likely Australia, given its extremely close political and economic ties with those two regions. This global adoption of a common currency, once complete, would sound the death knell for state sovereignty. We already see in the European Union how muzzled country leaders are by the bankers in Frankfurt. Popular reforms supported by the majority of a nation's people often gets rejected because it lacks the blessing of the European Central Bank, which has also been known to directly interfere in countries' democratic processes. With a world currency, there would be a true world bank that nations would be economically enslaved to. The World Economic Forum has proposed that the International Monetary Fund take the role of this World Bank. That's the same International Monetary Fund that independent researchers said causes corruption and economic disparity in poor countries they loan rescue funds to. Their study, Creating Crony Capitalism, Neoliberal Globalization and the Fueling of Corruption, published in Oxford's Socio-Economic Review, found that neoliberal policies mandated by the International Monetary Fund concentrate losses on influential social groups, such as businesses and civil servants, who then engage in corrupt practices to maintain their privileged positions. Using data from 1989 to 2014, the researchers found robust empirical support for their conclusions. If economic reforms were now mandated by this distant, unelected body in all countries, it would further accelerate global inequality, as the corruption of the few would be prioritised over the aspirations of the many. It would, of course, be headed and run by the globalist elite and help bring about the realisation of a new world order, or as Schwab and the Davos crowd call it, the Great Reset. While we cannot change the course of what might happen on both sides of the Atlantic, we can ensure our home country's economic sovereignty remains safeguarded, and we can do so through actively fulfilling our civil duties and creating a culture of holding our politicians accountable and penalising them for violating the social contract and selling our nation out, and by making others aware of the truth. Share this video, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and click the little bell to get alerts when we have more news to share with you on the Great Reset. God bless you, your family, and nation. I'm George Christensen, and this has been Nation First.